is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. I absolutely love our show today. Veteran newsman John Goulet will be giving us the updates today. Very excited about this. So we start with this. It's Tom Brady's 40th birthday, and you just knew I was going to talk about it. And I imagine some of you today are like, oh, God, Cowherd. It's going to be Tom Brady, blah, blah, blah. Tom Brady this, Tom Brady that. But I'm going to talk about somebody beyond Brady, but I want to start with this. Jack Nicklaus won 2 majors at 40. Nolan Ryan led the National League in ERA at 40. George Foreman was the heavyweight champ at 40, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar won 2 finals, 40 and older. It happens. It's rare, but it happens that there's great excellence as players age and hit the 4 and the 0. But let me talk about Tom Brady for a second. He's really the perfect storm for greatness. And I've been very lucky over the last 25 years that I've worked with a lot of really successful people. Some of them, most of them you don't know. They can be executives. They can be writers. They have been guests. And I'm always interested in their backstory. And Tom Brady is the perfect storm for greatness because there are 3 elements to his life that almost everybody I've ever met who's super successful shares. Number 1, Tom's got a chip on his shoulder. Don't overcompliment your kids. Let them struggle. It's okay to lose. Chip on the shoulder is so valuable. Michael Jordan had a Petty Hall of Fame speech. It's really valuable. Tom wouldn't even at times get the respect at Michigan. Got drafted in the 6th round. Chip on the shoulder is a wonderful thing. Psychologists, child psychologists now say, it's okay for your kids to struggle. It'll pay dividends later. The second thing is Tom's had great support. I've never met anybody in my life who was successful, man or woman, who didn't either have a great family or a great boss or a great business ecosystem around them. None of us do it on an island. We don't. We all need help. Find the CEO. There's a husband and wife at home doing a lot of the lifting. Tom's had great support. It's hard to remember Tom ever having a bad offensive line. Now, defenses have been hot and cold. Receiving corps hit and miss. Running back, some more productive than other. He's almost never had a bad offensive line. He almost never, you never get a clean shot on Brady. And the third reason Brady is so great, the third component, chip on the shoulder, great support, and the third is Peyton Manning. A rival to chase. Oh, Jack Nicholson came into golf. It was Arnold Palmer who was beloved and handsome and really good. LeBron's chasing the GOAT. Kobe chased the GOAT. The Beatles listened to the Beach Boys and said, God, they're so much better than everybody else. The third component that I've noticed from the most successful people, they're always faster chasing a rival. Peyton Manning came into the league first, already in the league, the golden child, number 1 pick, Manning family, American royalty. The guy for the next 15 years gonna be Peyton Manning. And that's what Tom heard, and he chased that baby. That's why he always played so good in those games. Always pumped his fist a little harder in those games against Peyton Manning. Remember when those emails and texts came out? Tom Brady talking to his friend. His friend was named Papa, P-O-P-A. Remember what it said? Thanks, Papa. I got another 7 or 8 years. He has 2. That's the final chapter. Game on. He was Peyton Manning. Tiger chased Jack. LeBron chased the GOAT. Jack chased Arnie. Beatles chasing the Beach Boys. Tom Brady is just insecure enough to be motivated daily, and yet not insecure enough to be arrogant, sloppy, and content. There's a great story I was reading yesterday about Tom Brady because it's his 40th birthday, and Rodney Harrison was telling a story a Patriot safety that played with him for 5 years. And he tells a story, and I'll read it, quote, he says, when I first got to New England, said Rodney Harrison, we became good friends. And we were in the weight room, and I showed up around 6:30 in the morning, and Tom said to me, good afternoon. So the next day, I showed up at 6:15. Tom said the next day, good afternoon. The next day, I showed up 15 minutes earlier. Tom said it twice. Good afternoon, good afternoon. The next day, I came in just like Tom at 5:30, and I said to him, man, I don't give a damn. I'm not getting here any earlier than 5:30. I don't care what you say. And they had a big laugh over it. That's as much Peyton Manning as it is Tom Brady. Chip on the shoulder, great support, and a rival to chase is almost always the perfect storm that makes legends. So I saw this story, and oh boy. I've never myself gone to a dating site. I have friends who have. I know they're very popular. This story reminds me of dating sites. Kyrie Irving, oh my God, now says he won't sign an extension with the Suns, leaving the Cavs obviously in a terrible spot. The consensus now, says the article I'm reading, is so bad between Irving and LeBron, Cleveland now has to get rid of Kyrie. Here's the problem. Sources are saying Kyrie won't commit to an extension with any team at this point. Meaning, what serious contender would consider him? What bad team would consider him? You know, it's funny. Kyrie Irving, you know what he wants to do here? You get what he's doing, right? It's Tinder. He just wants hookups. Kyrie Irving wants to live a world of Tinder. Just hook up with you and hook up with you. I'm not committing to anything. And you do realize that the people who hang out on Tinder, life's a lot more about eHarmony, and well-run franchises are run like eHarmony. You at least fake it. You at least try to assemble a long-term plan. I understand Kyrie Irving wanting more power, but does he realize that owners, commissioners, and presidents of our country also have to answer to somebody? Even owners of pro teams, there are guidelines, legislation, restrictions. Kyrie is treating this like Tinder. Hey, man, no long-term interest whatsoever. Yeah, that's not the way the world works, dude. That's why the kind of women you'd want to kind of spend time with aren't on it. They at least go with eHarmony. Listen, the Buffalo Bills owner is Terry Pagula. He's an owner of an NFL franchise. He was asked the other day, are the Bills going to be here in 10 years or whatever? And he said, well, quote, we have a lease through 2023, so there's a contractual obligation. He's a billionaire. He's an owner. He has to get along with people. He can't treat it like Tinder. Like everybody answers to somebody. You answer to a shareholder, your wife, a boss, laws. Kyrie Irving's making $20 million a year, plays with probably next to Magic Johnson, the most giving superstar of all time, a guaranteed trip to the finals. Before LeBron arrived, his alter ego, Uncle Drew, was more well-known than Kyrie Irving. He thinks now, Kyrie honestly thinks, boy, he's putting the screws to LeBron. No, he's putting them to himself. What decent, well-run team wants to get in a relationship with somebody that won't commit long-term? What is the quality of people on Tinder? I mean, Kyrie's 25. That's the Tinder audience. But in the end, you're going to basically date yourself. If you want to get involved with really good people and you want to get involved with really well-run teams, they're going to want a commitment. It's not all about you. I understand mobility. I understand at 25 not wanting to get married. But if you want to live a life, if you think as a pro athlete of just hookups, congratulations. Because owners don't want that. Coaches don't want that. GMs don't want that. Kyrie thinks he's sticking it to Cleveland, sticking it to Dan Gilbert, sticking it to LeBron. Yeah, I'm getting my way. Watch who you end up with. Kyrie Irving says now he will not commit long-term to any team. Can you imagine going for a job interview at a good company? They would just look at you like, oh, so you're in control here. NBA players, as much as the NBA is a pro player league, aren't running this puppy. In fact, there are times the commissioner's not even running it. Sometimes we think Jerry Jones runs the NFL. Everybody has to answer to somebody. And Kyrie thinks he's getting over. He is becoming less attractive to quality people by the day. Good to have you in. I cannot believe for the fourth, I think it's the fourth day in a row, something happened yesterday. Fourth day in a row. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I do not think it's a coincidence. That's coming up. Hall of Fame game tonight. Cowboys against the Cardinals. Hall of Fame game. No starters will play. I'll probably still watch it. It's football. Sad. I like football, man. It's great to have you back in the herd. 877-757-HERD. Go to Peter Schrager at the Hall of Fame here, Fox NFL Insider, in about 5 minutes. You know how every week and every day, you see this all the time, is like National Ice Cream Sandwich Day. That was actually a day this week. Monday was, I kid you not, I'm serious, National Avocado Day. Yesterday was National Coloring Book Day. April 14th, we looked this up, as National Ex-Spouse Day. Tomorrow is, this is true, National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. Saturday is National Disc Golf Day. And I also swear to you that this week, and how fitting is this, is this week is International Clown Week. And it's so fitting because 4 people have clowned LeBron. Steph, Durant, Kyrie, and now Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan came out yesterday and said, Kobe Bryant over LeBron all time, 5 beats 3. Ugh. This year has been absolutely incredible. In the last 9 months, Phil Jackson took a shot and trolled LeBron, Pat Riley, Golden State, Kevin Durant, Kyrie, Steph, the league, the media wouldn't put him top 3 in MVP voting, and the league was outraged when LeBron took TV games off, though the Spurs did it for years. All trolling LeBron. And this week, it's been piling on. It's not a coincidence. You do realize why this week everybody's piling on. Because LeBron's been in this league 14 years. He has controlled this league for a decade, though. And when Kyrie Irving said, I want out, it was the first time in a decade that LeBron didn't control things. And I've been saying this all year. There is LeBron fatigue around the league. There is definitely a LeBron fatigue around the league. They are tired of LeBron controlling mobility, finals, narratives, free agency, and there's blood in the water with Kyrie saying he wants out. And the second Kyrie did that, Steph trolled 3 days later, KD trolled the next day, and MJ trolled 2 days later. This is not a coincidence. This is not fate. This is Kyrie, I want out, blood in the water. For the first time in a decade, there is a sense that LeBron is vulnerable. And the NBA is a star players league, driven by agents, vanity, and ego. And everybody's had to suppress their ego for 10 years with LeBron. Now they're sensing weakness because of Kyrie's insistence to leave. There is blood in the water. And in 6 days, 4 icons went out and took a shot at LeBron. This is not just wacky timing, odd coincidence. Everybody senses for the first time in a decade, LeBron is vulnerable. This is why I honestly believe LeBron and the Lakers, you can keep poking the bear, keep trolling the king. They always poke back. Here's veteran newsman John Goulet with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Potentially bad news, Colin, if you're a Dolphins fan. Ryan Tannehill suffered a pretty scary-looking injury today at practice. I think we finally have the video of this.
All right, let's watch it. Let's watch this.
He's scrambling out to the right, and right here. Tries to cut on his knee, goes to the ground, non-contact injury.
Okay.
He did walk off the field under his own power, but didn't look like he was walking very well. He had a knee injury last year that ended his season early.
Wow, that's really bad news.
Right. Remember, it's funny. It's not funny, but yesterday we were joking about, you actually knew who the Dolphins' backup quarterback was.
Well, he'll play now.
Yeah, now he might. I have to ask the very obvious question. Are they going to give Colin Kaepernick a call? This is the first quarterback we've seen get hurt.
Didn't Colin Kaepernick wear a Fidel Castro shirt recently? It's not exactly
wore that. I believe when they were playing, he started against the Dolphins last year. You remember a few years ago, he also wore a Dolphins hat when he was the Niners starting quarterback.
I think the Fidel Castro would not play well in South Miami to some fans. That is a haunting image to certain people. So that would become a newsworthy topic. And what I've said about Kaepernick is I think he's good enough to play in this league. I've never been a fan of newsworthy backup quarterbacks. That's why I'm not a Tebow Manziel backup role guy. We'll ask our guest from the Hall of Fame in a few minutes, though, if Kaepernick, it depends on, does he work with Adam Gase? That's really the story.
And Matt Moore, he started the last few games of last year and a playoff game from the Dolphins. If it's not a season-long injury, they might be okay with Moore for a few games.
Yeah.
Staying in the AFC East, so remember there was the Patriots fight yesterday between Julian Edelman and Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah.
Both players were ejected because that's a Patriot team rule.
Right.
Well, they asked Belichick about clarification of the team rules, thinking, of course, Belichick knows all the rules. It's a little bit of a long bite, but let's hear what Belichick said about it.
Okay.
So when there's a fight at practice, scuffle practice, the rules that those guys are asked to leave. Is there anything positive that you can take from that sort of instance in terms of just competitiveness or the intensity that guys are showing, something like that?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the rules are. I just try to coach the team the best I can.
I was just referring to your rules on the player side.
I don't know what rule that is. I do what I think's right in all situations, so that's what I do.
So, Bill, what happens if there is a fight between players at training camp? What typically happens after this then?
I do what I think's best.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a very in-depth answer. Are you buying it all like he doesn't know what his own team rules are? Or
Listen,
is he just already sick of the media in early August?
Yeah, Belichick has always been get out of here. That's always been kind of a Pete Carroll thing, too. Pete likes feisty. He doesn't like fights. But, in the end, Edelman's a tough guy. Gilmore's the new cornerback trying to prove himself. It's unavoidable. You're going to have this stuff. When you have to hit the same guy for 17 straight days, I think that's a lot of it. I think guys get tired. If I'm a cornerback and you're a wide receiver, and I'm a young wide receiver, and I've been guarding you for 18 days, I know all your moves. And you're trying to get the attention and make the roster, and I'm jumping your routes, and people get feisty. Listen, man, the NFL training camp was the first reality show in America. Young people seeking attention and trying to get $1 million check. You're going to get fights.
Yeah, and that day after, people get sick of each other when they're in the same division. They play twice a year. Imagine doing that every single day.
And the guy they're jumping your routes.
It's hot and it's humid.
Yeah, it's the worst weather of the year.
And finally, as you mentioned earlier, I'm sure a very special day for you that it's Tom Brady's 40th birthday.
Yeah.
Patriots actually helped. They celebrated by bringing in goats to the practice facility, which is awesome. And they asked Bill Belichick to weigh in on how he'd be observing Brady's birthday. Here's Belichick once again.
You guys do anything for him? During practice, after practice? Cake?
Like the parade. Yeah.
It's so bad for our radio audience. Here's a new rule in the show for our editors. If you have to put words on the screen because you can't hear it, how about we just don't run it? I couldn't understand a damn word there.
The guy in front of the microphone is the one you can't understand.
Yeah, from now on, for our radio audience, if you have to put the words on the screen, let's just not run the ball.
Well, he mentioned having a parade.
I couldn't hear.
He actually made a joke.
You could have put a goat on the air, and I would have understood what they were saying. John Goulet with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Let's, via the Coward Global Satellite Network, go live. Canton, Ohio Hall of Fame game tonight. Our very own insider, Peter Schrager, is joining us. All right, let's talk about the Tannehill injury. Adam Gase is the coach. What's their options if this thing's serious? It didn't look very good, and he had surgery last year on that leg.
It doesn't look good. I'm hearing everyone's holding their breath. We should know later today, Colin. But the Kaepernick thing is going to come up, and some points to recognize with Kaepernick and the Dolphins. Let's start off with Adam Gase himself, which you mentioned before tossing to me. Gase actually interviewed for the San Francisco 49ers job a few years ago. And I remember speaking with members of the 49ers organization that Gase came in with a binder with an offensive game plan built towards Colin Kaepernick. Now, of course, this was peak Colin Kaepernick when he was coming off all that success, and it was post-Harbaugh and post-Tom Sula. It was before the Chip Kelly hire. But they had a whole game plan ready for Kaepernick that Gase already worked on. Tannehill, a mobile quarterback. The GM is Mike Tannenbaum. The last job Mike Tannenbaum had in the football world was with the Jets. Who'd he do? He brought Tebow in with Sanchez, and that was the biggest circus, if you want to talk media circuses. And last but not least, the owner, Stephen Ross, last year when they were Miami Dolphins players who stood behind Kaepernick, Ross helped fund social awareness programs and said he would hope that if a team was in need, they wouldn't be blackballing Kaepernick. But you mentioned it, and no one else on Twitter is, and certainly not over on ESPN, they're not. He wore a Fidel Castro T-shirt with Malcolm X on it last time he was in Miami when they played him in the regular season. Armando Salguero, who is a Cuban-American columnist down there in the Miami Herald, was 5 questions in the press conference about why is Fidel Castro on your shirt. Dan Lebitard's down there in Miami. That is a hot-button issue. It goes well beyond not standing for the national anthem. That Fidel Castro issue might be something that rears its head in this one.
Listen, Christian McCaffrey, I compared him to Reggie Bush. I'd never seen a Pac-12 player with those hips, that burst, the viability to do multiple things. I think he's just an unbelievable player, but he goes to Stanford, and they're not on TV as much as USC and Reggie Bush. I think he's going to be a really nice NFL player. Carolina drafts him. So everybody's talking about Christian McCaffrey. Has he been the best rookie so far in camp?
It's so early, right? Like, we don't know, but we're getting these clips online, and I'm talking to people at all the teams. Now, I would say this. Everyone freaked out when Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey skipped the bowl game. They both went in the top 10. I think that narrative is done. But the guy that everyone is talking to on the West Coast is Reuben Foster. He's the linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers. He was a top 5 prospect. There were shoulder concerns in the pre-draft lead-up, and there was some stuff off the field. John Lynch and the Niners, they cleared him. They said he's fine. He played in the first padded practice. And, Colin, I hate to get the Niners fan too excited for this season. They're not going to the Super Bowl. But this guy is dominating practice. He's got 4 interceptions in 5 practices. From what I'm told, he's all over the field. He's learning. And Robert Saleh's defense, this is the guy who came from Jacksonville, but originally was up there in Seattle. This is the perfect fit for him, learning from Navarro Bowman. So Solomon Thomas was the 3rd overall pick, also from Stanford, exciting player. But Reuben Foster, nicknamed the Ferrari, is the guy that everyone in that San Francisco building is super excited about, and he slipped all the way to the 31st pick overall.
You know, there was quarterbacks drafted last year, but my feeling was I just didn't know. I like Deshaun Watson. To me, was the best of the guys because I'd seen him for 2 years, and I just thought, all these guys I have questions. I'm going to roll the dice on Watson. He's been pretty good. You're hearing in Kansas City, they love what they see from the risky quarterback Mahomes.
It was like the roll of the dice pick, and this is what's so crazy about the Chiefs. They were in the divisional playoffs. They were home. They were a holding call away from going on to the AFC Championship game, and it almost was like they blew up their front office this offseason. They fired John Dorsey. They fired the salary cap guy, and then they traded next year's first-round pick for a quarterback. So everyone's saying it's Alex Smith's job. He has no reason to be concerned. They took a quarterback with the 10th overall pick and traded next year's first-round pick. I would say there's some reason for concern, and already Mahomes is lighting it up in practice. When it comes to preseason, of all these quarterbacks, I don't think there's a more exciting player to watch than Mahomes. And Colin, I'm just tossing this out there. The Chiefs are on primetime television 6 times this season. If they start out of the gates 2-3, 2-4, Alex Smith isn't doing anything special, don't be shocked if that fan base, who has not had a quarterback that they can rally around beyond Alex Smith in many, many years, maybe going back to Joe Montana in the early 90s, don't be shocked if that fan base starts rallying around Patrick Mahomes II, especially if he lights it up in the preseason like he's doing in training camp.
And by the way, I want to mention this, is we can all be cynics on this, but this is what we heard about Dak Prescott at Cowboy practice. He tore it up in the first preseason game. By the way, this is what we heard from Russell Wilson. Some of these guys, they just pop fast. So Patrick Mahomes was seen as the most talented quarterback, but the segue college to pro was difficult. So what Schrags is saying is, no, Andy Reid, who's elevated every quarterback in his life, he could be the real deal. Now, Hall of Fame weekend, Schrags, is, I mean, we think about it, the game, and like you're at it a lot. We have Chris Carter on later. What is the story there? Is it just the inductions?
No, it's cool. It's a really cool weekend, and you're going to get Tomlinson in, and you're going to get Terrell Davis and Kurt Warner and all that. But just being around here for a couple of days now, the name Terrell Owens is coming up, and it's become a point now where next year Randy Moss is going to be eligible for the Hall of Fame. Terrell Owens has been passed over twice. I asked the president of the Hall of Fame, David Baker, I said, to me, it's inexcusable. He's second all-time in receiving yards, third all-time in receiving touchdowns. And he said the fact that Terrell Owens is a finalist, he should be thrilled about, and that's an honor and a thing for him. I said, no. He belongs to get in. So next year's class, I don't think Moss and Owens both go in the same year. It's very rare you see the same position go in twice. I think it's going to be one or the other, and that's going to be a fascinating discussion. But all these guys getting inducted, that's what this weekend's about. It's awesome. Terrell Owens not being here, it just feels bizarre.
Yeah, I've always believed that Whitlock and I disagree on this, but listen, athletes are artists. And a lot of people we put in the Hall of Fame for acting can be crazy. And a lot of people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame did some things we don't love. You cannot deny T.O.'s talent. To me, he's an absolute Hall of Famer. Listen, not every band member in the Hall of Fame was a good teammate. Right? Like, there was a lot of people. Right. There's a reason rock bands all split up after the third album, but they're still Hall of Famers.
And here's the thing with him, the voters are the writers. And the thing I keep hearing, someone today said, well, he had a lot of drops too. I was almost ready to run home from Canton. It was such a disgusting comment. Look at the numbers. If we want to be completely rational about this, forget how he treated you. Forget how he treated you, 55, 65-year-old reporter from City X. Think about what he did on the field. And can you write the history of the sport? Can you write it without Terrell Owens? Well,
nope.
I look at the history books, and you can't.
You can't.
That's what it is to me.
All right, you got regular season hair, even though it's the preseason, buddy. Great seeing you.
Love seeing you, Colin. Keep it up, man. Awesome stuff.
Good stuff. Yeah, listen, this whole thing, we get into this. I know it's one of these, kind of debate show things. I don't want to hear about Terrell Owens wasn't a good teammate, okay? Half the people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame were getting in fistfights after concerts. God, the Eagles didn't get along. It's hard. You got alpha males in a locker room. I mean, we were talking about pro sports. Every single guy in that NFL locker room, that Major League Baseball locker room, has been the best athlete on his team since he was 9. Yeah, Terrell Owens wasn't the greatest teammate. Either was Axl Rose. You keep him out of the Hall of Fame? Well, sports is different. No, it's not. Bands are teams. You tour with a group of professionals. You compete against other bands to get dates and crowds and discretionary income. Bands are like teams. It's competition. There's the Billboard charts. You want to end up number 1. Not every rock and roll musician's a good teammate. Are they great? Hall of Fames are about that. Are you all-time great? I don't want to hear about what a teammate you were. I don't want to hear how you didn't get along with quarterbacks. I don't want to hear that stuff. Yeah, and people, listen. Is he the best receiver of all time? No. I have him when I do my list, he's 4, 5, 6. But I think we get caught up in stuff. I'm going to tell you something. The best people in my business, the best people in law, the best people in architecture, the best people in tech, they're not always easy to get along with. You don't know. Best people in tech have the biggest egos. Are they great? If they are, they're Hall of Fame material. Speaking of Hall of Fame material, Jim Harbaugh, I saw this story today. USA Today, that's a newspaper. I myself prefer the purple section. Here's the headline: Michigan may be college football's biggest mystery in 2017. John, if you could find mysterious music. Michigan, Harbaugh, nobody knows what's going to happen. I do. They're going to be really, really good. Here's Michigan's schedule. They may possibly lose their opener to Florida. I think they'll win. And they may lose Saturday, October 21st at Penn State. They probably lose. But you know what their record's going to be through 10 games this year? It's going to be 10-0 or 9-1. Now, at the end, they got to go to Wisconsin and face Ohio State. But they're going to be 10-0, there's no mystery, or 9-1 heading into Wisconsin. So USA Today can tell me there is great mystery. Mystery. Who knows? Who knows what will happen with Michigan? How about they're going to kick the you-know-what out of Cincinnati, Air Force, Purdue, Michigan State, Indiana, Rutgers, Minnesota, and Maryland? They're going to punch them right in the forehead. Games are over at half. How's that for mystery? Ain't no mystery. Jim Harbaugh's record is 20-6 at Michigan. Of his 6 losses, one's by 7 at ranked Utah, 4 Michigan State, 1 at Iowa, 3 at Ohio State, 1 against Florida State. He's had 1 bad loss rebuilding the program. He's potentially 25-1 in a rebuild with several close losses, mostly in a conference that's the most improved in college football over the last 2 years. And by the way, the first sign that rebuilding is working is not only your record, but in lockstep, 1 and 1A with that is your losses get very close. Let's go back to Nick Saban at LSU. The year before Nick got there, just like Harbaugh at Michigan, they were 3-8 with 4 ugly losses. The first year with Nick, just like the first year with Harbaugh, he took 3-8 and made it 8-4. They went from 4 ugly losses to 2. In Saban's second year at LSU, they did have only 1 ugly loss. He would eventually win a national title. It's not just record. Yes, Harbaugh improved the record, but in lockstep with that is the losses are really, really close. Nick Saban in Alabama, the year before he arrived, they were 6-7. The next year, they were only 7-6. Here's how much they lost by. 3-7-7, 5-7-7. Every loss was a 1-score game. You don't go very often from garbage to superior. It is a process. The first 2 years, you need to win, turn the record around. Saban did twice. Harbaugh's done it. And you at least need to be more competitive when you lose. Harbaugh at Michigan is working the exact same way Saban at LSU and Saban at Alabama worked. USA Today, there is great mystery. What is behind the wall? Al Capone's vault. What are those lights in the sky in Phoenix? Who knows what happens to Michigan? Here's what happens. They destroy 7 teams by November 11th, beat Florida State or Florida by a touchdown, and it's a coin flip at Penn State depending on health. There's no mystery about that. Do you have like a hammer sound effect? I know I'm asking John a lot from you today, not only doing sound effects and music, but being our veteran newsman. Let me just tell you, it's going to be a lot of clanks on the head. Michigan crushes Cincinnati, crushes Air Force, crushes Purdue, crushes Michigan State, crushes Indiana, crushes Rutgers, Minnesota, crushes Maryland. It's going to be one conk on the head after another. And Jason Whitlock's out of his gourd, too. Did you hear Whitlock on my show a couple days ago?
It's time for Jim Harbaugh to put up or shut up. And look, Nick Saban, all these other guys, did they go around and make a spectacle of themselves and make themselves the focus of college football year-round? He's put the pressure on himself. He needs to back it up. We keep putting Harbaugh in the same category as Saban and Meyer.
We should.
And I'm saying you got to earn that.
Crazy talk. God, everybody slow down. This is exactly how turnarounds work. You take a crappy record, make it really respectable, and you tighten and cinch up all the losses. That's exactly what Saban did at Michigan State, LSU, and Alabama. It's exactly the way it works. You can line Harbaugh up with Saban, and it's the exact same process. In L.A., it's the Herd. Yesterday, I was driving into work, and it was interesting. I was bouncing around the radio yesterday as I drove into work, and there was a young guy on the air at my former employer, Sean Farnham. Sean played at UCLA, and he under Steve Lavin, so he knows college basketball, and he played under Labs, and then he coached at Pepperdine. So anytime you coach, you have a pretty unique understanding as a broadcaster of the recruiting process, the AAU circuit. Sean Farnham has really good connections in the college basketball world, very much like my friend Doug Gottlieb, as they know kind of where the bodies are buried. And so he was talking about LaVar Ball and the young son now going and playing at UCLA. And this was a really interesting comment, I thought.
I think this is going to affect UCLA's recruiting. I think there are going to be kids and parents that are going through the recruiting process right now that do not want their kids part of any part of this circus that follows LaVar Ball. And that's going to be an issue for Steve Alford and the UCLA basketball program moving forward.
LaMelo is the next great Ball kid. He's a couple years out of UCLA. And he is known as having a personality that's much more in line with LaVar Ball. Alonzo was quiet, reticent, really a good teammate, much like a LeBron, kind of shares the ball. LaMelo's got more of Dad's personality and flair. And, I was thinking about this yesterday, is that Nike wanted nothing to do with LaVar Ball. Adidas rolled the dice and got involved with him in the AAU circus. Adidas rolled the dice, and this weekend Adidas got burned because he made some LaVar Ball misogynistic references to a female ref, and Adidas had to apologize. And I'm sitting here thinking yesterday, driving in, who just signed a huge contract a year ago with UCLA? Under Armour. Under Armour is now in business with LaVar Ball. Adidas just got smoked by him. Is that unpredictable people create tension, and LaVar is walking, talking tension. And it's very funny. UCLA is now in business with the Ball family. And UCLA, like Duke, is a refined, international, respected brand. When I think UCLA, I don't think sports. I think academics. When I think Kentucky, I think basketball. When I think Ohio State, I think football. That doesn't mean they're not universities and good universities. But when you say UCLA, it's international. It's the medical school. It is an international, Duke-level, refined brand, and you're now in the business with it. And Adidas just got smoked by LaVar Ball. And Under Armour is now in business with LaVar Ball. And we got 2 Ball kids left. So is there pushback at UCLA? Are there regents? Are there people? Is it Under Armour saying, we don't have any interest? Sean Farnham is now saying, listen, there are recruits, families don't want to get involved with this. And, listen, I was talking about this yesterday, is that I have to be very careful of getting pious, and being above topics. And everybody now is like, I can't believe you're talking about LaVar Ball. Well, Jay Billis wrote a column this week, and I thought it was terrific, and I agreed with his sentiments exactly. I think you start getting pious and not talking about certain topics, and you miss often very interesting, compelling topics. It's how you talk about them. Jay Billis smartly talked about LaVar Ball. And I listened to Sean Farnham saying that yesterday, and I'm like, man, you got Under Armour executives, and it's been a rough year for Under Armour. They're looking at Adidas and thinking, we just got smoked by this cat. Is Under Armour calling UCLA thinking, hey, we cannot afford earnings reports coming out. We cannot afford this kind of publicity. You get involved with intense, crazy people, and eventually don't be shocked if they're intense and crazy. But, and I say this, LaVar Ball is going to be a topic, whether we want it or not, because Lonzo Ball is going to be a topic in the NBA for the next 12 years. And people say LaMelo is really good too, and he's going to play at UCLA for at least a year. So that LaVar story is not going away. He's going to be here. We all thought the Kardashians would go away. It's been 15 years. T.O. still shows up on shows. Rodman's meeting with North Korea's dictator. I mean, it's just, you think people are going away, they don't go away. Hour 2 coming up. Chris Carter. Awesome. It's the Herd. This is the Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in L.A. iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. So, I don't know why this is true, but this just happens to be true. There is not only one way to coach, but in college sports, I'm not talking about professional sports. Let me just talk about college sports. Control freaks, rigid, loud guys, they work. I'm not talking pro, I'm talking college. I'm talking dealing with 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. Tom Herman is the coach at Texas. And I was told Tom Herman is a control freak and difficult to deal with if you're in the media. Now, that's just, I know everybody now in America hates the media. It's all fake news, according to our president. I'm going to go the other way and say a lot of news is not fake, and the media doesn't always try to pick fights. Sometimes these coaches, when Paul Feinbaum went after Nick Saban, Paul Feinbaum was right. Nick Saban was not right. But a policy came out yesterday with Texas and their coach, Tom Herman. He does not want reporters to stand behind him in a bizarre new media policy. And it takes me back to Nick Wright, who's on our show, got into a fight with Tom Herman years ago when he was a radio host, and Nick was doing something with Tom Herman, and Tom Herman just blew up on the radio. The backstory's irrelevant. Here's just the audio of it.
Your fire analogy, while your definition of the word meat was quite interesting, your fire analogy doesn't, to me, pass anyone's smell test. I also think, for whatever it's worth...
What's a smell test, Nick?
Is that a real question?
That's an absolute... Hey, who are you, man? How old are you? Are you like 19?
31 years old.
31 years old. Yes, it's a real question, or I wouldn't have asked it.
Hey, Tom, when times slow down for you, can you and I have lunch?
Who is this?
That's Nick.
Nick, absolutely not. Nope.
First of all, the guy was 38-3 as a coordinator at Ohio State and 22-4 at Houston. He hasn't had a lot of adversity on the field, and Texas is going to go to USC early this year and lose, and they're going to lose to Oklahoma, and they're going to lose to Oklahoma State, and if they eventually play them, they're going to lose to SC and Oklahoma for sure. And by the way, at West Virginia is tough. At Baylor is going to be tough. At TCU is going to be tough, and he's going to have some adversity. But I will say this about rigid coaches. In college, they work. Woody Hayes, Bobby Knight, Nick Saban, Jim Calhoun. If you start looking around the college coaches that do very well, you kind of think of them as either volume, controlling, my way or the highway guys. Jim Harbaugh, Urban Meyer, Rick Pitino, Frank Martin at South Carolina. A couple years ago, I called him nuts. He just made South Carolina relevant in basketball. Sean Miller at Arizona sweats through his shirt before tip-off. Bob Huggins. Mike McIntyre at Colorado. Like the my way or the highway guy at the college level, it works. In fact, I would argue the guy that always fails at the college level is too nice guy, soft guy. Derek Dooley, Butch Jones at Tennessee, Mark Helfrich at Oregon, Charlie Strong at Texas, Ty Willingham, gracious, thoughtful. Like, for whatever reason, at the college level, like overbearing, rigid, power-fueled, it works a lot. And the knock on Clay Helton at USC is he rough enough? Does he have 10% jerk? And I want to bring in Kenyon Martin, who actually played with Bob Huggins in college, former #1 pick, National Player of the Year. All right, this is, and I don't have an answer for this, Kmart. Like, I look around college sports, and all the guys that you're like, I'd never want to play with him, they're the guys winning their conference every year. You buy my theory?
Oh, yeah, I'm with you. You have to have some kind of butthole in you, to be, so to speak, to be successful, I think.
What was Huggins like?
Tough. One of the most honest and brutally honest people you can be around. But he got the best out of me and got the best out of people that play for him.
So you weren't bothered when he got?
Yeah, not at all. It was all love. If you listen to the message and not the way the message is being presented, you know.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, no, people's thin skin, you know, when it comes to being critiqued or being.
Nobody wants to be criticized.
Yeah, not at all. But if you want to be successful and you think this is your business or your line of work that you want to be in professional sports, so you have to have some type of tough skin because somebody's going to always have something good to say, bad to say, or whatever you want to classify it as. But college coaches, I think, like you point, you have to be that way. You have to have control and pulse of every situation that's going on around you, I think.
Now, there have been really strong-willed coaches that don't work.
Yeah.
Like when doesn't it work?
When you're too nice. Or if you take it to the next level. What was the coach at Rutgers?
Okay, that was inappropriate.
Throwing the balls at the players.
Did you ever have a coach, though, that was tough on you that you didn't like?
No.
That was difficult?
No, I've never. If you're tough on me, I listen to what it is. No one has been more tougher than Bob Huggins. You know, I went to college.
Dude, he never smiles.
I was 18 when I went to Bob Huggins. I left when I was 22. Experienced a lot, heard a lot. Seeing guys come, seeing guys go that couldn't handle what he was bringing to the table.
I want to shift gears to Kyrie Irving. I am for, and always have been, Kenyon, I am for player mobility.
Yeah.
Owners move teams, GMs and coaches move. Yeah. You guys have a 7-year, 8-year window to make your scratch. I'm always for players moving. Yeah. But there's dumb mobility.
Definitely.
I don't get Kyrie. Do you?
No, he's out of his damn mind. I thought basketball or sports in general should be about winning and losing. He's getting his money. He's going to get his money.
He's getting his money now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what are you trying to accomplish in this? You're trying to go make an all-NBA team so you can get the Supermax deal. Wherever you go, you're not going to make that team because there are other guards that's going to be in better situations, winning situations if you lose. If you leave Cleveland.
So what's the end game? Like, I don't get it.
I have no idea. Like, this is one of those things, like, if you're playing with Tom Brady, if you're a receiver playing with Tom Brady, like, why would you want to leave and go play with the Miami Dolphins, so to speak? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I get, you know, the old saying, the grass is always greener. Like, people think
until people start walking on it.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people say, Colin, you were about KD. And I said, time out. KD had grown increasingly frustrated with Westbrook. And by the way, when he went to Golden State, his numbers got better.
Yeah.
So what Golden State promised him, listen, you'll take just fewer shots and have just as many points. Like, you could make an argument that LeBron is, along with Magic Johnson, one of the more giving superstars.
Yeah, definitely. He's made everybody around him better. He's made everybody richer around him. Guys that won championships that hadn't won one or had a chance to sniff one, including Kyrie. You know, you were winning 25, 30 games before LeBron got there. You know, so wherever you go, that's, in a lot of people's opinion, that's who you are. You're a 25, 20, 30 a year win team with you as being the dominant player. And that's not okay with a lot of people. When you're in a situation now where you're making it to the finals every year, you got the best player on the planet, swallow your pride. Swallow your pride no matter what it is. You don't have to look at him when you go home at night. You know, so swallow your pride and make it work. But everybody's not about wins and losses, and that is obvious in this situation.
Let's shift gears to LaVar Ball. So I heard a former UCLA player and a coach at Pepperdine say yesterday on the air, LaVar is going to hurt recruiting, that some parents, they want to be part of this circus.
Yeah.
And Adidas this past weekend got burned by LaVar Ball. They had to apologize for what he did. And Under Armour did a deal with UCLA, and his Under Armour sitting there going, oh, hell, what do we get involved with? Yeah. Let me ask you, you have a very talented son.
Yes.
Is there part of you, and let's say UCLA, they may come after your son, and there were 4 or 5 schools, would you consider the circus element of LaVar Ball to be a negative?
Yes.
You would?
Definitely. Because it's not about what I've been saying. What the narrative should be is about whether his 3 boys can play basketball or not. That's what it should be about. And unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. Everything, like Lonzo Ball had a hell of a summer league. And nobody's talking about it right now. Everything that's surrounding that family is negative. And it's unfortunate. So I would definitely have that in consideration if Lonzo Ball was still, or LaJello Ball or Melo Ball was there, and their dad is involved. I would definitely have some pause with sending my kid there.
Well, by the way, your kid's a really good player.
Yes.
And he's going to be a D1. How old is he?
16.
So he's getting recruited now.
Yes.
And he's getting recruited, I would imagine, to good schools.
High D1. High D1 schools.
And you can't mention them or can?
Yeah, Georgetown, West Virginia, Arizona, Kentucky. You name
Arizona's recruiting your son?
Yes. So
UCLA is going to look at your son.
Yeah, he's a Pac-10. He's an LA kid, of course. He's going to Sierra Canyon, which they have Cody Riley who went there. So they got talent.
So your son, you're the perfect guest today, and you're saying it would affect you.
Definitely, it will affect my son for one, because it's his decision at the end of the day. But I will have influence in where he goes.
Of course.
And if that's part of the narrative at UCLA, I would be like, because I'm not going to subject myself to it or my kid to it. That's just what we're not going to do. I want everything around to be positive and a great experience going to college. And the negativity and the uncertainty of what might go on.
Instability.
Yeah, I'm just not willing to put my kid in that situation.
Boy, you were a good guest today.
Appreciate
you are. You were like a ground zero for this. So good stuff. Kenyon Martin. Are you on SFY today too?
Yes, sir.
Good to see you. Are. I'm telling you, man, I don't know what the word is when a guy's well-dressed. Tight?
Yeah, all of the above.
I mean,
that's a good word.
You look tight.
Appreciate it, brother. I try, man. I try. I
got my summer toupee on, so I'm trying to look as good as I can look as well.
You clean up well, Colin.
All right, Chris Carter's around the corner live from Canton, Ohio. We're brought to you by JCPenney. Guys, get to their biggest sale of the season. Levi's 502 regular fit, under $40. Select styles, 25% off. JCPenney. Get your pennies worth. So Kenyon Martin, very interesting, backed up Sean Farnham's claims that he wouldn't send his kid to UCLA now. Doesn't want to be part of the LaVar Ball circus after his misogynistic comments this past week. That's a real thing. I said I was driving to work yesterday, and Sean Farnham, who played at UCLA, coached at Pepperdine, knows his stuff. Sean Farnham came out and said this in regard, and if Sean Farnham's saying it, then he's hearing it. Here's Sean Farnham yesterday.
I think this is going to affect UCLA's recruiting. I think there are going to be kids and parents that are going through the recruiting process right now that do not want their kids part of any part of this circus that follows LaVar Ball. And that's going to be an issue for Steve Alford and the UCLA basketball program moving forward.
And Kenyon Martin just came on our show. Kenyon Martin has a 16-year-old son. He's 6'6". He's talking to the top schools in the country, including West Virginia and Arizona, meaning he's on UCLA's radar. And Kenyon Martin said, not sending my kid into that mess. So this is a real situation now. This is a real situation. The Lakers situation with Lonzo, you can push that stuff aside. Lonzo's going to take over the city. He's a professional athlete. But, be careful. You get into relationships with crazy people, and they're entertaining as hell. And I'll be the first to admit LaVar is entertaining and amusing, but he's crossed a threshold now where he's turning off and hurting UCLA. And I'll say it again, UCLA is a very refined brand. Okay, like when you think UCLA, I don't even think sports. Like when I think Ohio State, I think football. It's a great university, but I think Kentucky, I think hoops. Alabama, I think football. I think Duke, I think of like a million things. It is a refined, elevated brand. I think that for UCLA. I was thinking about this. Everybody's taken shots at LeBron James this week. And I was just, LeBron James has been pretty transparent about one movie. And I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but if you follow LeBron and you know LeBron, there is a certain movie with LeBron that he is obsessed by. And it is the It is The Godfather. LeBron says he watches it constantly. And LeBron's career, you could say, is very much, he's Al Pacino. He's Michael Corleone. And LeBron sees himself as the Braun father. His first 7 years in Cleveland, he was learning the family business. Didn't seem like he had it in him to be on top. Then there was the decision. He had to kill off Slazo and McCluskey, Varejao and Dan Gilbert. His 4 years in Miami, I was Michael Corleone in Sicily on vacation, exiled from Cleveland. And then when he was coming home, Michael returned and became the Don. LeBron flexed his muscles like he never had before. Got the number 1 pick traded, got his boys Tristan J.R. Smith overpaid, started doing the dirty work behind the scenes. Kyrie wanting to leave, you know what that is, right? That's Michael Corleone and Fredo. You broke my heart. You broke my heart. 2018 and beyond, that's Godfather 3. Just when I thought I was out, they kept pulling me back in. Coming to a theater near you, The Braun Father. Maybe a reach. I was just thinking about it. Here's veteran newsman John Goulet with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Good news, Colin. The college football top 25 preseason coaches poll just came out like an hour ago.
Oh, so this is the top 20. Okay.
This is just out just now. Who do you think's number 1?
Well, Alabama for coaches. Florida State or Alabama?
Yeah, Alabama number 1. Do you want to keep guessing or you want me to just tell you?
Well, it's on the screen here. I can see it.
Oh, see, I can't see that screen. That's not fair. So Alabama number 1, Ohio State, Florida State, USC, Clemson. That top 4, wasn't that your top 4 for
By the way,
end of the season poll?
I spent 2 hours this weekend doing incredible homework. The only difference, it's incredible. The only difference is I had Ohio State 1, not Alabama, and they've got Michigan number 9. I ended up having Michigan 12 because Michigan ends at Wisconsin and against Ohio State. And I think what's going to happen is Michigan's going to be like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and they're going to lose one of those games, and they're not going to look as good. And I think Wisconsin ends up ahead of Michigan. They have Michigan ahead of Wisconsin by a slot, but I'm right there with you, man.
How about this, Colin? 1 SEC team, obviously number 1 in the top 10. 4 Big Ten teams in the top 10.
All these fanboys from the South are like, you're anti-SEC. This is the coaches. Okay, this is the coaches saying outside of Bama, you don't have a top 10 team anymore. And by the way, Las Vegas is now in on the Big Ten. They have Michigan favored over Florida in the opener. And they have, I'm telling you, this is not an anti-SEC thing. Vegas, the coaches are out of the SEC. It is a one-team conference.
They do have a bunch of teams in the top 25, but they're
big
not
deal.
up there
So
at
does
the
the
top.
Mountain West Conference. That doesn't mean squat.
To the NFL, the Denver Broncos QB competition is apparently going horribly. According to NFL reporter Benjamin Albright, the competition between Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch is basically just a who's worse.
Okay, can I tell you a story? I almost said this 2 days ago. I didn't find a spot for it on this show. I was told, what day is it today? Thursday? So it was Monday night.
Yep.
That Monday night, somebody that I trust implicitly had said Elway was having second thoughts on Paxton Lynch because his pre-snap adjustments were too slow. And Paxton Lynch is really struggling above the shoulders right now to go through his progressions, to come to the line, to work at an elevated pace, and that people within the organization are concerned that Paxton isn't progressing nearly as fast as like Carson Wentz did. And I was told that Monday night by somebody I trust. They haven't bailed on him. He hasn't played yet. But there was concern in Denver's camp as he's not picking stuff up.
Here are the few tweets from that NFL reporter. There's just 3 tweets. The first one is, shades of Tebow out here as the QB1 hops it. Then he tweeted, this Broncos QB battle reminds me of Grossman-Orton on so many levels and might have been worst practice I've ever seen out of Simeon. Lynch wasn't much better. Wow. They just didn't really address that position in the offseason. I mean,
listen, as smart as John Elway is, if you don't have the quarterback situation right in this league, it makes coaches look bad, it makes GMs look bad, it makes John Elway look bad, man. This is why I've always said I would give up 8 picks for a quarterback if I absolutely believed he's great.
They really didn't want to trade for Romo? Remember, they didn't want to offer anything for him?
It's legit. Okay.
And finally, this is the least surprising story you'll see. John Gruden says he's not making a comeback to the NFL anytime soon. 4 days ago, he said he was, quote, preparing to come back.
Not going back.
Right, and now he's saying, quote, I don't foresee myself coaching anytime soon.
He's not going. Listen, I love John Gruden.
Why does he put this out there all the time?
He puts it out there for contract negotiations. I love Gruden. But you know what Gruden is? Gruden's a better broadcaster than a coach. He has gone to the point now, I think he's an exceptional broadcaster. When he was at Tampa at the end, that roster was a mess. And all the best players he didn't draft.
He's also paid roughly the salary of a top 10 NFL coach just to be a broadcaster.
Yeah. All right, thanks, buddy. John Goulet with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
And that's not a shot at John Gruden. I know John and I love him. I just think he's an exceptional broadcaster. And I think at the end, he was okay as a coach. There were better coaches. Let's go. Canton, Ohio, Hall of Fame via the Coward Global Satellite Network. Our buddy, a guy who's in that hall, Chris Carter. By the way, Tom Brady's 40 years old, and you retired at 37 years old. Go to your last year in the NFL. Now, Brady looks like, he looks in good shape, but it should be noted he's got a great coach and a great offensive line. Chris, was there a moment, a drive to work that you knew, I'm just done with a game that I love?
Well, I think based on the position. Tom's also playing the right position, either quarterback or kicker, where you can have that extended career. But you also have to give Tom credit. He's taken advantage of modern technology, realizing that utilizing food as a source for energy and being able to eat the right things that your body can process better, eliminating things as far as refined sugar and other things he's eliminated from his diet. Yeah, as a player in my 16th year, of course, there were many days, no, I didn't want to go play wide receiver in the NFL. Absolutely not. But I was very, very fortunate, didn't have a lot of injuries. So with Tom, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a number of phenomenal things happen. And also for a person to be a high achiever and to still be motivated,
yes,
at a level as if he still hasn't won anything or accomplished anything, that's hard to impossible to duplicate. So that, the Belichick, the stability, all those things are what we're seeing in one of the greatest athletes of the modern era.
You can't see this, but I'm watching some of your career highlights. I had no idea you could block. Boy, you laid some guys out there, Chris. Holy moly, look at you. Oh, look at this. Look at this.
Yeah,
oh, boy.
I played football for the physical contact.
Clearly on these videos. Listen, the Cowboys, you've got some one of the things hanging over the Cowboys now is Ezekiel Elliott. Will he get suspended? You've got some information on this?
Well, I would be shocked if he wasn't suspended, Colin. I mean, based on all the information, a couple sources close to the situation, I think it's going to come down. If you look at what is the suspension for domestic violence, that being 6 games, I think the Cowboys are going to miss him for multiple weeks to start out the season. Wow. I would be more shocked if he wasn't suspended.
It's interesting. Dak's a young kid. How, take me to what you think that's like when that news comes down. How does that fall on his teammates? How do they perceive him? Are they angry at him?
Well, I think that when you're with the team knows more information. So the coaching staff will start to prepare people and prepare other guys to be able to fill that gap. Just like New England, they were able to do with Jimmy Garoppolo when Tom was suspended, and Cowboys offensive players and the defensive players will say, we're not a one-man team. So that will kind of be their rallying cry. They might be a little more play action and pass dominant than they would be as a running football team. Say right now they run at 60 to 65%. I could see that flipping with Dak going into a second year with the receiving core and the tight end that they have. But each guy picking up a little bit of the slack when Zeke is absent from the team.
Chris Carter making news here. He would be surprised, according to his sources, if Zeke was not suspended 4 to 6 games. You have a very unique relationship, and I've said this before. In my years of doing this, I've met few players who are not only as good as broadcasters, but are so connected to the sports industry, and you have a relationship with Odell Beckham. And we had some good discussions this week on a show you used to help us on, Speak for Yourself, about being the highest paid player. And I said to Jason Whitlock, our friend, I said, listen, we have to also recognize that Odell now is easily the most compelling merchandise mover in the city of New York, the most powerful city in the country. And the Mara family cannot just deny that exists. Mm-hmm. You can't just say that doesn't matter. Listen, the Clippers keep re-signing Blake Griffin because he sells tickets. So take me into the mind of Odell Beckham saying he wants to be the highest paid player. How do you think this ends up? What's this year going to look like?
Well, I don't think this is going to be a bad year. I think that what he has done is, and I've tried to express to him that you have to kind of control the narrative around what people say about you. So you can't be just like any other athlete and give the vanilla answers or the typical line and answers to questions. Like, if you think not being the highest paid receiver is enough for you, then you should say that. And he believes that, so now the Giants know, because it's kind of a landmark, that even if we offer him a contract where he makes more than Julio Jones or the other receivers at the top, Antonio Brown, then that's still not going to be enough for him. So you've also gotten a little warning shot that it could be a long negotiation. Odell will have a great season. We've never seen a receiver come out with 3 seasons like he had. I'm looking for season number 4 to be the best season. He's more prepared mentally and physically, how people are going to attack him, and he has a very good quarterback in Eli Manning and supporting cast being around him, that this will be the biggest year of his career. So it will be exciting. The Giants and the Mara family, they know what they have. They know they're going to have to pay him a lot of money. He won't be the highest paid player in the league when they do sign him, but I look for him to spend a great deal of his career in New York, if not his whole career, with the Giants.
Interesting. Near the end of your career, middle to end, the Vikings bring in Randy Moss. So you have been a legend and a star, and a team then drafts somebody that maybe people think is going to supplant the star. So Jimmy Garoppolo now is seen as the heir apparent to Tom Brady. Tom's fighting, he won't give him snaps in practice. Like, how do you think all this stuff about Jimmy G and contract, do you think Tom listens, cares, hears it? Does it matter to him?
Well, why does Tom keep saying that I want to play 4 to 6 years? Even though his wife even came on the record and said that she didn't want Tom to continue playing. So I spend about the same amount of time as Tom Brady does thinking about Jimmy G and him replacing me. 0. All right? Tom keeps sending the message out there, I want to play 4 to 6 years. So why would I be concerned? I'm not supposed to groom the next quarterback for the New England Patriots. Tom is focused on the things he should be focused on. Trying to get Super Bowl number 6. Trying to get this team, which is the most talented team that he's played on New England since 2007, in a championship position. Get them home field advantage. Whenever Jimmy G plays, that's someone else's decision, and I know Tom Brady spends 0 time thinking about it.
I would imagine you know Tom Herman because he was the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. So you know Tom, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Tom Herman came out yesterday. I was guessing this. Your co-host on First Things First, Nick Wright, had a pushback with him a couple years on radio that we played. And Tom is, like a lot of good coaches, at the college level especially, a little bit of a control freak. We've seen that with Saban. Frank Martin's a hell of a basketball coach at South Carolina. He's yelling and screaming. We've seen Woody Hayes and, a lot of these, Frank Cush. At the college level, Bob Huggins, yelling and screaming and power hungry. It controlling works. I want your perspective, and kind of our gateway to this is Tom Herman, but you played with a variety of coaches. You were a great motivated player. How does the controlling coach work in your eyes?
Well, football is a different sport, and I believe it's not meant for all men to play the game. And the way the game has to be coached, it has to be coached with an intensity and also a volume that is not like the other sports are taught. So I think it takes very, very special people, not only to play the game of football, but to be able to teach the game. Because at the end of the day, a football coach is a teacher. So how do the students assimilate the information, that being athletes, that being a lot of guys from a lot of different cultures? How do they assimilate and learn information? And for me, being a nice guy or someone verbally who can't communicate, it's hard to be successful and be a NFL coach or a football coach, be in college or high school, because of the intensity for which the game is coached. Now, Tony Dungy, I spent a lot of time with him.
Yeah.
Now, Tony Dungy doesn't use profanity, but he's intense, and also, which is more important, he's demanding. And he can do that without yelling and without using profanity. That's the art form that Tony Dungy, that he perfected as a coach. Also, knowing his personality, that he would be out of character. So a lot of volatile coaches have been attracted to football. I love people who have passion over what they know and what they do. So I'm not going to say that, no, we should reel these guys in. And I know that as a football player, I love playing the game and being coached, if being yelled at, or however that came to me. If it was going to make me better, I was willing to accept that because I knew it made me better. And I know it's a part of learning as a football player, and as a young football player, you're going to get yelled at. I mean, every football coach I ever had, he yelled at me, and I think every one of them was trying to give me information to make me better.
Finally, you're at the Hall of Fame. You're one of 300-plus people in the Hall of Fame. In the history of football, the world, there's 300 people walking this planet, and you're one of them. There have been a lot of emotional moments for a variety of players. When you go back to the Hall of Fame like you are today, where does it take you? What do you think about? Do you think of mom? Do you think of your family? Where does it take you emotionally?
I'm really shocked that I'm in the room and that I spend the intimate time with the greatest players that ever played. You said, yes, I'm on that list. But being in the room and just having small talk with them, that's probably the most profound thing that happens. And then seeing where the hall is, the state of the hall, how they've refurbished it, the field, everything. I mean, it's a magnificent place to be. As we say, the guys in the hall, it's a great time to be in the Hall of Halls. And also for FS1 announcement, I'm announcing next year that we'll be doing our broadcast Thursday and Friday from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Colin, so pass that out to your colleagues.
His show is First Things First. It debuts September 5th after that huge college football weekend. He is a teammate. I consider him a friend and sometimes a mentor, one of the smart, compelling people I've ever met. Chris, it is absolutely a pleasure for you to be a teammate. I'm happy for you in the show, and I just love talking to you every time I get the chance. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
All right. He's a really interesting dude. Oh my gosh. A lot of you say, Colin, you can't go a day without saying something about LeBron. Oh, I hear the criticism. And you are exactly right. What a good day it is for LeBron today. No, not a bad day, a good day. That's next. If you're looking to sell your car, there's now a new, better way to do it with TrueCar. Fast, easy, best way to price your car from the comfort of home. When you're ready to experience, check out TrueCar.com/trade today. Good day for LeBron. I know what you're thinking. How can it be a good day for LeBron? Michael Jordan just said Kobe's better. But more importantly, Kyrie Irving, according to a story from the Cleveland Plain Dealer, Terry Pluto is a longtime respected columnist for the Cleveland Plain Dealer. According to his sources, the relationship between Kyrie and LeBron is so bad at this point, Cleveland will trade him. Here's the catch. Kyrie, according to Pluto's sources, and I trust these, this is not a blogger. This is a guy that's been around for 30 years connecting sources in one town. Kyrie won't commit an extension with any team at this point. Okay, this is now officially a mess. Cleveland's trapped. But this is great for LeBron because now Kyrie Irving, folks, has become the villain. Kyrie. You can't trace the Cavs' demise to LeBron. This is Kyrie holding Dan Gilbert, the city, the fans, LeBron hostage. Now he's saying, I won't commit to anybody. So no quality team wants to do a deal with him. Minnesota, Andrew Wiggins, they would consider moving him. That'd be great for Cleveland and Minnesota. They're not going to do that now. Nobody's going to commit to a guy that's not going to commit long term. This is great for LeBron. Because now when LeBron leaves after next year, we're going to say, well, God, do you blame him? We know Dan Gilbert and he have issues. Kyrie Irving went wacko. They could never keep a general manager. And there's always it's Cleveland, you can't get free agents there. You know, Japan, from 1991 to 2001, they had a recession that was so bad that over a 10-year period, they had zero net growth. And it was called the lost decade. Japan called that the lost decade. 10-year period, no net growth. I think next year for LeBron, this upcoming year, is going to be the lost year for LeBron. Michael Jordan had one of these. Do you remember the Michael Jordan lost year? 1994-95. He came back from baseball and was just not quite he came back from baseball. He was not in basketball shape. People were blocking his shot. He wasn't as efficient. It was sort of MJ's lost year. By the way, Brett Favre had one of these. New York Jets. The transition between the Packers great and the Vikings great was that lost, messy year with the Jets. Randy Moss had a couple of these with the Raiders. In between Minnesota and the Patriots being the greatest receiver maybe statistically we'd seen. So now, I mean, according to, again, this is Terry Pluto. This is a guy that has been around forever and has extensive sources. And by the way, this is a guy that Cleveland organizations know can carry a message. So if he's saying this, it is happening. Kyrie and LeBron is now so bad, they've got to trade him, and Kyrie is saying, I won't commit to any team. Okay, now it's on Kyrie. This is a huge, huge edge for LeBron. If LeBron leaves in a year, hey, I wanted to stay. Kyrie left, trapped us, couldn't make a trade, couldn't get any players. That's not on me, man. That's not on me. This is really good. Kyrie now has become the villain. I mean, listen, man, I am for player mobility. You know I'm for it. But what Paul George at least said, hey, I want out. You know, you can trade some people. And then when they trade him to OKC, Paul George at least fakes it and says, hey, man, maybe I can be convinced. And Paul George did give the team, despite what you've heard, we do know he gave the team about a year. He had told Larry Bird, he had told Kevin Pritchard, man, we got to win here. I'm not staying here. I mean, Kyrie drops a bomb, and then says, I'm not committing to anybody who wants me. What? Well, you are screwing Cleveland and Dan Gilbert and the fans and the city and LeBron and, frankly, perhaps your legacy. Wow. It's good for LeBron. You know, it's funny. If I'd have said to you 6 months ago, LeBron to the Lakers, you'd have said, clickbait, controversy. If I'd have said to you 5 weeks ago, you'd have said, it's kind of interesting. If I said LeBron to Los Angeles now with this news, that whole LeBronzo thing, it ain't so crazy, is it? It's not so crazy. Business out here, stage 3, the mogul stage. Kyrie bails on me, now makes demands. We can't get anything for him. I mean, there's a one thing leaving LeBron. That ain't great. Leaving him and trapping him, that gives LeBron a complete pass to leave.
Maybe he wants younger guys that will look up to him instead of veteran guys who think they can win without him.
It's interesting. It is really interesting. Ray Lewis stops by next hour. Chris Carter, Kenyon Martin, Peter Schrager, all money. I will say this. Many of you have, I'm a Tom Brady fan, and it's Tom Brady's 40th birthday today. I will say this. I was watching a special, and I don't remember what it was on, and I apologize. And it was called The Defiant Ones. It was HBO, I think. The Defiant Ones. And it's about the kind of the hip-hop, how it was built. And it's a lot of the biggest stars.
It's about Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine.
Yeah. It's called The Defiant Ones on HBO. And there's a great line in there. They said, you can use fear as a headwind or a tailwind. And in the Defiant Ones, and in Tom Brady's case, they've used that fear of failure as a tailwind. And I think it's a big part of Tom Brady's success. Hour 3 next. In LA, it's The Herd. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, FS1. It's great to have you here. You notice this in society a lot, is that, if you sort of look at what salary caps are in pro sports, salary caps were not invented for the Yankees. The salary cap, it was not invented for the Lakers or the Celtics or the Steelers. Salary caps are basically socialism in sports, protecting the little guy. But yet New England keeps dominating. The Packers are still good. It's so funny in sports. We are trying so hard to keep it fair, and life isn't fair. I tell my kids this all the time. I never want to hear you say deserve or fair. You don't deserve squat, and life's not fair. Maybe that makes me a bad parent. But it's so funny. I see today the coaches poll came out for the top 25, and it looks a lot like mine. You could have taken this poll and put it in the 80s, and it would look the exact same. Alabama 1, Ohio State 2, Florida State, USC, Clemson, Penn State, Washington, Oklahoma, Michigan. I mean, you could have taken that poll. 9 of those 10 teams 25 years ago could have been. We are trying so hard to even out the playing field. Less scholarships. It's the same teams, whether it's geographic, desire, intensity. Let's face it. There's just advantages living on the coast of North Dakota. North Dakota is never going to be as economically vibrant as New York, D.C., and California. And it will not be. I mean, I live in California. I drive to work every day at 77. I watch surfers. You don't get to see that in Vermont. Like we're trying so hard in sports to even everything out. You know who's going to be number 1 in college basketball this year? It's going to be Kentucky, Arizona, and Duke. Shocker. And Kansas is going to be really good, too. Yeah, we're trying so hard to make sure it just doesn't work that way. Some people have more desire. They have more focus. They have more intensity. They have more passion. I mean, I look at this top 25 today and I laugh. This could have been 25 years ago. College football's done everything they can to make sure the teams don't have an advantage, and they basically limit what the big dogs can do, which is scholarship limitations are so Alabama can't sign the 50 best players. Who's number 1? Alabama. I mean, the same teams this year are favored in their conference that were favored 30 years ago. Bama in the SEC, Ohio State in the Big Ten, Florida State in their conference, USC in the Pac-12, and Penn State and Washington and Oklahoma are very good too, and Michigan. God, we just try so hard. Like, you can keep taxing the rich. You can keep limiting scholarships to Kentucky basketball. It doesn't change it, man. Purdue is never going to be a national power. Michigan generally is. Just the way the world works. It's just the way the world works. Like we just have agricultural and global advantages in America that a lot of countries don't have. We got good weather. We're not Siberia. We're not northern Canada. Stuff grows here, and they grow football players in Ohio and Alabama and Florida and Southern California and Michigan. And it's just, I laughed at that top 25 today. I'm like, God, you could have taken that from 1977. Look just the same. Also, want to touch on this. I think it's interesting. Jack Nicklaus won 2 majors at 40. Nolan Ryan led the National League in ERA at 40. George Foreman was the heavyweight champ at 40, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar won 2 finals, 40 and older. It happens. It's rare, but it happens that there's great excellence as players age and hit the 4 and the 0. But let me talk about Tom Brady for a second. He's really the perfect storm for greatness because there are 3 elements to his life that almost everybody I've ever met who's super successful shares. Number 1, Tom's got a chip on his shoulder. Don't overcompliment your kids. Let them struggle. It's okay to lose. Chip on the shoulder is so valuable. Michael Jordan had a petty Hall of Fame speech. It's really valuable. Tom wouldn't even at times get the respect at Michigan. Got drafted in the 6th round. Chip on the shoulder is a wonderful thing. Psychologists, child psychologists now say it's okay for your kids to struggle. It'll pay dividends later. The second thing is Tom's had great support. I've never met anybody in my life who was successful, man or woman, who didn't either have a great family or a great boss or a great business ecosystem around them. None of us do it on an island. We don't. We all need help. It's hard to remember Tom ever having a bad offensive line. Now, defenses have been hot and cold. Receiving corps hit and miss. Running back, some more productive than other. He's almost never had a bad offensive line. You never get a clean shot on Brady. And the third reason Brady is so great, the third component, chip on the shoulder, great support, and the third is Peyton Manning. A rival to chase. Oh, the third component that I've noticed from the most successful people, they're always faster chasing a rival. Peyton Manning came into the league first, already in the league, the golden child, number 1 pick, Manning family, American royalty. The guy for the next 15 years gonna be Peyton Manning. And that's what Tom heard, and he chased that baby. That's why he always played so good in those games. Always pumped his fist a little harder in those games against Peyton Manning. Remember when those emails and texts came out? Tom Brady talking to his friend. His friend was named Papa, P-O-P-A. Remember what it said? Thanks, Papa. I got another 7 or 8 years. He has 2. That's the final chapter. Game on. He was Peyton Manning. Tiger chased Jack. LeBron chased the GOAT. Jack chased Arnie. Beatles chasing the Beach Boys. Tom Brady is just insecure enough to be motivated daily, and yet not insecure enough to be arrogant, sloppy, and content. Chip on the shoulder, great support, and a rival to chase is almost always the perfect storm that makes legends. So I saw this story, and oh boy. I've never myself gone to a dating site. I have friends who have. I know they're very popular. This story reminds me of dating sites. Kyrie Irving, oh my God, now says he won't sign an extension with the Suns, leaving the Cavs obviously in a terrible spot. The consensus now, says the article I'm reading, is so bad between Irving and LeBron, Cleveland now has to get rid of Kyrie. Here's the problem. Sources are saying Kyrie won't commit to an extension with any team at this point. Meaning, what serious contender would consider him? What bad team would consider him? You know what he wants to do here? You get what he's doing, right? It's Tinder. He just wants hookups. Kyrie Irving wants to live a world of Tinder. Just hook up with you and hook up with you. I'm not committing to anything. Life's a lot more about eHarmony, and well-run franchises are run like eHarmony. You at least fake it. You at least try to assemble a long-term plan. I understand Kyrie Irving wanting more power, but does he realize that owners, commissioners, and presidents of our country also have to answer to somebody? Listen, the Buffalo Bills owner is Terry Pegula. He's an owner of an NFL franchise. He was asked the other day, are the Bills going to be here in 10 years or whatever? And he said, well, quote, we have a lease through 2023, so there's a contractual obligation. He's a billionaire. He's an owner. He has to get along with people. He can't treat it like Tinder. Like everybody answers to somebody. You answer to a shareholder, your wife, a boss, laws. Kyrie Irving's making $20 million a year, plays with probably next to Magic Johnson, the most giving superstar of all time, a guaranteed trip to the finals. Before LeBron arrived, his alter ego, Uncle Drew, was more well-known than Kyrie Irving. He thinks now, Kyrie honestly thinks, boy, he's putting the screws to LeBron. No, he's putting them to himself. What decent, well-run team wants to get in a relationship with somebody that won't commit long-term? What is the quality of people on Tinder? I mean, Kyrie's 25. That's the Tinder audience. But in the end, you're going to basically date yourself. If you want to get involved with really good people and you want to get involved with really well-run teams, they're going to want a commitment. It's not all about you. I understand mobility. I understand at 25 not wanting to get married. But if you want to live a life, if you think as a pro athlete of just hookups, congratulations. Because owners don't want that. Coaches don't want that. GMs don't want that. Kyrie thinks he's sticking it to Cleveland, sticking it to Dan Gilbert, sticking it to LeBron. Yeah, I'm getting my way. Watch who you end up with. He is becoming less attractive to quality people by the day. Hall of Fame game is tonight. We'll have the ever-popular game coming up, which is called, John, Tom or False, as Tom Brady celebrates his 40th birthday. In L.A., it's the Herd. There was something I thought was a bit of a revelation earlier in the show, and I'm going to give that to you in about 5 minutes. It is also Tom Brady's 40th birthday today as we embark on the Hall of Fame game tonight. Cowboys, Arizona, none of the starters will play. We do this game from time to time. We thought we'd do it again, called Tom or False on Tom Brady's 40th birthday. John Goulet will give us an amazing number, and we have to guess if it's Tom or false.
All right, here's the first one. Tom or false, the number of touchdowns Tom has thrown in his postseason career is equal to the number of touchdowns Buffalo Bills quarterbacks have thrown in the last 3 seasons combined.
Please read that again.
The number of touchdowns... I can't believe I got it through the first time without screwing it up. The number of touchdowns Tom has thrown in his postseason career is equal to the number of touchdowns Buffalo Bills quarterbacks have thrown in the past 3 seasons combined.
Tom.
That's true. Yes.
That would be Tom or
true.
false.
Tom's postseason career passing touchdowns, 63. Bills quarterbacks the last 3 seasons, 63. All right, second one. The total distance of Tom's career regular season passing yards in miles is longer than the distance of the Boston Marathon.
That can't be true. He has not thrown for over 26 miles. That's false.
Regular season passing yards in miles is 35 miles.
God.
It's a lot.
Think about that. You know how many Julian Edelman bubble screens? Like 1,000 equal a mile.
I believe last year, though, when we did this, I think Christine thought it was more than the distance from New England to England, which it is not. It is only part of the way there. All right, third one. The number of passing touchdowns Tom Brady has thrown in the Super Bowl is equal to the amount of home runs Babe Ruth hit in the World Series.
Please repeat the question.
The number of passing touchdowns Tom Brady has thrown in the Super Bowl is equal to the amount of home runs Babe Ruth hit in the World Series.
Actually, what's interesting is the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Every single Super Bowl has been the same. They kind of become a running team more than a passing team. So I'm going to say that's false, that Babe Ruth hit more playoff home runs.
They are both equal. Tom Brady has thrown 15 Super Bowl touchdowns. Babe Ruth hit 15 World Series home runs.
Okay. Do you have one more?
I have two more. Tom has started more games in the postseason alone than the NBA's 2013 number one pick Anthony Bennett has ever started in his entire career.
That's true.
It's a landslide. Tom has 33 postseason starts. Anthony Bennett has 4 starts.
In his career.
Well, he's not in the league anymore, so it's tough for him.
God, he was the worst number one pick of all time. Guess who picked him? Cleveland.
Right. Last one. You'll like this one. Since he became a starter, the odds of Tom Brady playing in the Super Bowl that year are actually better than the odds of Russell Westbrook hitting a field goal.
Well, who the hell would know? False. What does that mean?
It's true. Tom Brady has made the Super Bowl 44% of the time as a starter, 7 times in 16 seasons. Russell Westbrook's career field goal percentage is 43%. So he is more likely to make the Super Bowl than Westbrook is to hit a shot.
That is the most amazing stat. What was the other amazing stat we heard? Well, no. There's one stat on Brady we heard this morning as a staff. You've got to hear this. It doesn't even sound right.
If I remember right.
Okay, here it is. Listen to this. I've got it right here. In his 30s, so Tom in his 30s, he went 51-1 at home against the AFC in the regular season. His only loss came after they clinched. So essentially, in his 30s, he never lost a home game in the regular season against the AFC. Is that the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard? Who is Paul Hembekides?
He works at your former employer.
Oh, well, congratulations to Paul Hembekides. Hembo, I call him Hembo. I call him old Paulie Hembo. Hembo. That's an amazing stat. In his 30s, he never lost a regular season game at home to the AFC.
Basically, if you're an AFC team, you just shouldn't go to Gillette.
I mean, that number is absurd. Here's veteran newsman John Goulet.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
So earlier we mentioned that Ryan Tannehill's was injured today. Non-contact injury, rolling out of the pocket.
Yeah.
Looked pretty bad. The Dolphins know that he at least hyperextended his left knee. Same one that he injured at the end of last season and missed some time for. A source close to Tannehill said it's possibly a PCL sprain.
What's that?
Well, if it's a PCL sprain, he wouldn't necessarily need surgery. It might be like a 2 to 8 week injury, so he could maybe miss a couple games, but wouldn't be too bad. Obviously, worst case would be a torn ACL. Season would be over. Reportedly, the Dolphins are considering Colin Kaepernick. Let me throw out another name, and Jason McIntyre just wrote this on the Big Lead. Adam Gase spent time in Denver with your favorite quarterback, Brock Osweiler, and has always been a huge fan of him. The Browns are probably going to cut him, and he probably has some familiarity with that offensive system already.
I guess, but I don't get Brock. I'd be the first to admit. I don't want to badmouth a kid because he's like young. He's probably got a nice family and stuff. I never bought the Brock Osweiler stuff. First of all, he's almost awkwardly tall. I've never seen a guy get the ball batted down at the line more than 6'8". I didn't think he had very good feet. I didn't think he read a defense particularly well. For a 6'8" guy, I thought he had an average noodle. He didn't have a big arm. I don't get.
But if it's that, or like you brought up, Kaepernick might be controversial in Miami.
This
because
is why.
of him wearing
Kaepernick's going to get a job.
Shirt.
Kaepernick's going to get a job. We got quarterbacks going down. We got Tannehill and Flacco going down. We haven't even had a preseason game yet. So for all you Kaepernicks who are caping up for Kaepernick, he's going to get on a team eventually because they're just going to run out of players in this league. You got 2 veteran quarterbacks already down. We haven't played a game yet. We had 69 guys last year took a snap at quarterback. Kaepernick, now I still contend the best fit for him is Seattle because they have an offense where, first of all, they know Kaepernick. And Russell Wilson's so strong and formidable that I think it really helps if you have a strong, formidable starting quarterback. Like when Tebow went to the Patriots, it didn't matter because they had Tom Brady. When Tebow went to the Jets, it was a circus. I think if you bring him in and you have like Jason Whitlock always says this, if you take him to Dallas, nobody in Dallas is going to want Kaepernick over Dak Prescott in that locker room or on the streets. And Dallas is such a formidable brand, the Cowboys, that Kaepernick won't dent the brand. So at first I kind of glanced at that. I'm like, it's a conservative town, Kaepernick. He may be the perfect backup for Dak Prescott at some point.
Jerry loves attention.
And Jerry likes attention. And, Dallas very conservative. But, I think the other place that I think he works with Carolina and Cam Newton. Like, I'm serious. If you're asking me the Kaepernick, the one place he works, I think Seattle works. I think Carolina works. Because they have some run-first, read-option stuff, so the offense fits. It's also a team with very good defensive personnel and a defensive head coach. So Carolina doesn't demand that you go out and throw 39 times a game, and that's not what Kaepernick is. And, again, Cam Newton's a rock star. So nobody in the world in that locker room, if Kaepernick came in, there's no way you're going to have this surging popularity with Kaepernick. Everybody's mentioned these Kaepernick fits. It seems to me that Seattle with Russell and Carolina with Cam are the obvious choices to me. Like, there's no doubt about it.
For Carolina, they already have a running quarterback with a cannon arm and no accuracy, so he kind of fits perfectly for Kaepernick.
But he is a rock star. I think you've got
There's no doubt who the starter is.
And nobody's going to push back Cam, and nobody's going to push back Russell Wilson. The coach and that quarterback are linked forever.
Coming off the heels of John Bones Jones knocking out Daniel Cormier, Michael Bisping announced that his fight with George St. Pierre is official. Here was Bisping on UFC Tonight.
Yeah, so this is actually the third time I've been offered this fight. So the ship sailed twice. On this occasion, on the third occasion, it set up sailing, but it did a U-turn. And it pulled up at New York City, and I've got a chirpy little Englishman who's going to fight George St. Pierre, Madison Square Garden, November 4th. It is official. Put it in your diary. Do not miss it. We're taking over. Boom.
He's tough. I've seen him fight live. He is a strange fighter. Bisping's an interesting guy because when I watched him live, he's not physically as impressive. Like he's not totally ripped, but he's got one of those big noggins, good shoulders, base. Like he's got good DNA. Dude is just born to be tough and fight.
Are you in for that fight? We
talked
about a little
That's
bit of a
lack
of star power in UFC.
Yeah,
is this a good one?
No, I think Bisping. I think the European thing helps him. I think I really do, and he's a tough guy. He doesn't maybe blow you away when he walks in the ring like John Jones kind of blows you away. Bisping's a fighter. He's a tough guy.
And finally, how much money do you think Floyd is going to make with this fight with McGregor?
$200 million.
Well, so when he fought Pacquiao, Floyd made more than 9 figures. Some reports say he made between $150 and $200 million.
Okay.
On Showtime's All Access Mayweather vs. McGregor, Floyd talked about what he might make in this fight.
Am I the highest paid athlete out there and just coming back? Are we not talking about no contract? And I don't knock nobody. We're not talking about no contract for no 4 years or no contract for no 5 years. I could do it in 36 minutes. 300 or better in 36 minutes. We're just being real.
When he says 300, he does not mean dollars or $100,000. He's talking about $300 million.
Well, listen, the pay-per-view system. This is why Netflix can have $20 billion of debt. Netflix is subscriber-based. And if you have 100 million people globally paying you $6.95 a month, do the math. I mean, that's why these subscription services don't rely on advertisers. If you can have a subscription business like a Netflix, or you can be like Mayweather, I mean, every time you buy the fight, he's probably getting $7 of the $88 you pay. I mean, he could be getting $10. He could be getting $32. But this is the subscription service business. If you have content that people really want, the subscription service business is a way to riches. Veteran newsman John Goulet.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
So I was driving to work yesterday, and former UCLA basketball player Sean Farnham was on the air. And he is a former player at UCLA and a coach at Pepperdine. So much like my friend Doug Gottlieb, he's very much tied in to the world of AAU basketball, recruiting, coaching. Guy knows what he's talking about. He's a guy, if he talks, I'm listening. And he was talking about LaVar Ball's antics and how they are now affecting negatively UCLA.
I think this is going to affect UCLA's recruiting. I think there are going to be kids and parents that are going through the recruiting process right now that do not want their kids part of any part of this circus that follows LaVar Ball. And that's going to be an issue for Steve Alford and the UCLA basketball program moving forward.
And I had Kenyon Martin on my show today, a former number one pick. He has a 6'6" son, a 16-year-old, getting better by the week. And he is being recruited. He's a top player in California. He's being recruited by not UCLA yet that I know of, but other schools. And I asked him point blank about LaVar, UCLA, his son, and what decisions he would make. Would you consider the circus element of LaVar Ball to be a negative?
I would definitely have some pause with sending my kid there.
Well, by the way, your kid's a really good player.
Yes.
And he's going to be a D1. How old is he?
16.
So he's getting recruited now?
Yes.
So UCLA is going to look at your son?
Yeah, he's a Pac-10. He's an L.A. kid. Of course.
And you're saying it would affect you?
Definitely. It will affect my son, for one, because it's his decision at the end of the day. But I will have influence in where he goes. And if that's part of the narrative at UCLA, I would be like, because I'm not going to subject myself to it or my kid to it.
And one of the things I was thinking about in the last 24 hours is that Nike passed on LaVar Ball, no interest. And right now, Nike hasn't even offered Lonzo. Okay? Adidas has supported LaVar in the AAU operation, and they got burned this weekend. He went misogynistic, not cool, and AAU had to apologize. And I'm sitting there thinking, who just signed a contract a year ago with UCLA? Under Armour. They haven't had the greatest year. And it's like, you're Under Armour, and are you, Kevin Plank's the CEO, are you sitting down with your lieutenants and going, crap, we're in the LaVar Ball business? You know, it's an interesting situation to me. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I lived in Portland for years. Nike's based in Beaverton. Like, if you're Nike right now, I mean, this is the world of basketball. Do you get in bed with Lonzo Ball? Because if you get in bed with Lonzo Ball and the Lakers, you're in bed with LaVar. You know, I mean, Adidas just got burned. Under Armour's probably worried they're getting burned, and Nike's sitting there thinking, do we want to get smoked? You know, and it's funny. LaVar Ball is kind of – there's been a lot of LaVar Balls. I mean, the Kardashians' career started on a sex tape. And, you know, you look at Dennis Rodman and T.O. and LaVar and Kardashian, these kind of like comet figures. First thing is they never go away. T.O. still shows up on reality shows. You think they're just like a flash in the pan. They leave. They don't. They stay forever because they get attention, they have fan bases, and the media can't control itself and can't restrain itself, and you talk about them. The other thing is sometimes they are newsworthy. Sometimes the Kardashians, I mean, Kim Kardashian marries Kanye West. In pop culture, that's going to be, you know, big. If Lonzo Ball's the next Magic Johnson and his dad's been embroiled in the controversy, it's going to be newsworthy. So, I mean, you can't ignore stuff. You can't get pious and self-righteous. Sometimes LaVar may be newsworthy. And it's funny because what is newsworthy? The old rules don't apply. You know, the network news, I'll watch the network news now. They'll put tweets on the air. Our president taunts world leaders on Twitter. We used to have the fireside chats. Presidents would have fireside chats. Then it was the weekly radio address. Now it's tweets. So, you know, the world changes. Everything's urgent. You can have direct connection. You and I could talk to Eminem on Twitter. So I think this situation, I was thinking about it yesterday. You got Nike's in the crosshairs because they want to get involved with the Lakers, but do they with LaVar? Adidas just did and got burned. UCLA's involved with Under Armour. They're probably having some repercussions with that. So, you know, it's a situation. Do you get involved with this guy? And you know, Jay Billis had a very interesting column on ESPN.com this weekend. and I'm just going to take some of the highlights. His feelings were mine. He said, I enjoyed, this is Jay Billis, he wrote this, I enjoyed many of the antics of LaVar. So did I, from the beginning. I likened him to a carnival barker, snake oil salesman, and a basketball Kardashian. It's exactly what we called him. At first, I knew him as sometimes entertaining, kind of a mouth with very little fiber behind his words. He made me laugh. I enjoyed the banter. Totally agree. I was impressed by Lonzo, his oldest son, during his time at UCLA. Understated. Confidence and respect for teammates. Agreed. But after the official was removed this weekend, Ball received a technical foul from the replacement official and was ejected. The game was forfeited with the female official, and he said, LaVar Ball lost me on that one. I'm done with him. I'm done listening to him, consuming his nonsense, or caring what he has to say. That's largely how I feel. That is largely how I feel. I would at this point, I would not bring him back on the show. And this weekend cemented it. I had reservations. It cemented it. But it is a very interesting situation because these shoe companies, they sell shoes to kids. I'm not buying these shoes. You're not buying these shoes. LaMelo Ball has an Instagram that has more followers than 97% of the NBA. So does Nike get pious? Does Adidas say we're out? Does Under Armour say no thanks? That's the business they're in, of taking young, culturally relevant, sometimes iconic risk speakers, opinion makers. So, but Sean Farnham's comments about recruiting and Kenyon Martin saying, I'm not sending my son to that, this is the repercussions. The repercussions. Kenyon Martin also said something, and I know it's popular. Speaking of Kyrie and LeBron, Kyrie wants out. There's a story today in the Cleveland Plain Dealer from respected columnist Terry Pluto. Terry Pluto says Kyrie Irving is told, the word is that Kyrie Irving will not give assurances to any team, meaning Cleveland's trapped, Dan Gilbert's trapped, LeBron's trapped, the city's trapped, the Cavs are trapped. Because Kyrie's like, you can go ahead and trade me, but I'm not giving you any assurances. Well, do you think Danny Ainge wants to make a deal with that? You think Minnesota wants to make a deal with that? So he's really putting the screws to himself, Cleveland, the fans, the city, LeBron, Dan Gilbert, everybody, the GM. And it's very popular now among the media to be pro-player. Owners are bad in the NFL. Owners bad. Players good. But there are times when mobility is just dumb. Like, I'm pro-mobility. I'm not pro-dumb mobility. And Kenyon Martin echoed me on Kyrie wanting out of Cleveland.
He's out of his damn mind. I thought basketball or sports in general should be about winning and losing. He's getting his money. He's going to get his money.
He's getting his money now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what are you trying to accomplish? This is one of those things, like if you're playing with Tom Brady, if you're a receiver playing with Tom Brady, like why would you want to leave and go play with the Miami Dolphins, so to speak?
Again, it's almost like college sports, where every time a player wants to transfer, we're always like, bad coach, bad NCAA, bad institution, timeout. None of us can just walk across the street to a rival. If Ohio State signs a kid, you think you should just be able to walk across in the middle of fall camp to Michigan? Like, I'm pro-player. I have always supported players' movement. But when it comes to the NCAA and transfer situations, I think there should be some regulations. Well, coaches can move. Coaches can't move whenever they want. Rich Rod left West Virginia, had to spend $4 million on a buyout. Coaches have to buy their way out of contracts. So, this is a situation with Kyrie. I know everybody's celebrating the demise of LeBron. This is a bad look. It is incredibly immature. It lacks foresight, and it comes off as selfish. Congratulations, Kyrie, but I got to tell you something. You have put the city of Cleveland and the franchise in a really, really bad spot. The coaches come out with their top 25 poll in college football. I'll address that and the LeBron father next. We had a little news we thought broken on this show earlier today. Chris Carter, Hall of Famer in Canton, Ohio, The most well-connected athlete I've ever worked with in all my years of doing this. I've never worked with a professional athlete who's also one of the better broadcasters who's a former athlete. He's as connected as anybody I've ever met. I go to Chris Carter for some sourcing occasionally, and he really knows a lot of people. He joined us last hour from Canton and told us what he expects a lengthy suspension for Ezekiel Elliott coming up.
Based on all the information, a couple sources close to the situation, I think it's going to come down. If you look at what is suspension for domestic violence, that being 6 games, I think the Cowboys are going to miss him for multiple weeks to start out the season. Wow. I would be more shocked if he wasn't suspended.
There you have it. Ezekiel Elliott, let's just say a month for now. I think Dallas... Who does Dallas play in the first 4 weeks? I think they go to Denver and Arizona. The way I always look at suspensions like Deflategate, if you can come out of them 500 in the first month, you're in a good spot. I also think this team is really about their offensive line first, their quarterback second, and Zeke third. So I think he's really valuable. But I'll say this, in Vegas, he's worth a point. That's what he's worth, maybe 1.5 points. So they open up with Denver. They open up with New York. Here's the Cowboys schedule. Chris Carter says he's going to be suspended lengthy. Let's just go with a month. They open up against New York. New York's had their number last couple of years. Let's say it's a loss. Then they go to Denver. Denver is a mess at quarterback right now. It's not working. They're down to Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch, and the reports are it's awful. I'll give them a win. At Arizona. I think Arizona's rebuilding. I don't think Arizona wants to call it rebuilding. I think Arizona's rebuilding starting at quarterback. I'll give them a win there. Then they face they host the Rams. I'll give them a win there. Although I think the Rams are going to be better than people think. Then they host Green Bay. Then you hope he's back. But then they go to San Francisco. So if you went the first 6 weeks, let's just say, okay, they lose to New York, and that'd be competitive, and they lose to Green Bay. I think Dallas could win at Denver, at Arizona, and at home against Los Angeles without Zeke. I think it's very, very difficult to beat a Green Bay, an Eli Manning, and a New York, and that front seven defensively. Actually, that defense is really good. So there you go from Chris Carter. And by the way, Dallas has some players at running back. Who do they have, John?
They have Darren McFadden, who
he's okay.
The year before Zeke got there was a 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah.
And they still have Alfred Morris.
Yeah, he's okay.
And then there's a guy, so Jalen Smith, the injured linebacker, his brother actually is also a running back who supposedly has been amazing at camp. He's probably going to play tonight.
Yeah.
So those 3 guys could carry the load for a month.
I still contend, when I think of the Cowboys in this roster, I think of their offensive line. And I think that's been some of Dak's success. A lot of dinking and dacking last year. Not a lot of stuff down the field. The second thing that came out, here is the coaches' top 25 college poll today. And I was laughing about an hour ago. I said, it's amazing. Society's always trying to make it fair. Like salary caps are essentially socialism in sports. Salary caps were created to help the little markets and the less glamorous markets. Here's the preseason Amway coaches poll. And you could take 9 of those teams, and they were number 1 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and 30 years ago. So I went back during the break, and I got the 2007 poll 10 years ago, preseason top 25. I got the 1997 poll. I got the 1987 poll. It was all the same names. The only difference is Notre Dame and Nebraska were more prominent 10, 20, and 30 years ago. But it should be noted, I have Notre Dame winning 9 games this year, and Nebraska winning 9. Nebraska's got a quarterback nobody's heard of named Tanner Lee, who will end up being the best college football player nobody's talking about in preseason. Nebraska's going to be pretty good this year. They have a transfer kid, a quarterback named Tanner Lee, and he is special. He is a playmaker at quarterback. And Mike Riley's a great quarterback coach. So Notre Dame and Nebraska were more prominent 10, 20, and 30 years ago. But they're not bad today. I think Nebraska struggled with some geographic isolation over the course of time. Their footprint isn't as rich in recruiting. And I think similar to Notre Dame, it seems sort of isolated. And kids now want to play in the warm weather. They have more transparency. They can see the campuses. But, the college system, like we're trying to, make sure the rich are not too rich and the powerful not too powerful. Here's who's going to win the SEC hands down. Bama. Then Ohio State, Big Ten. Florida State, ACC. And USC or Washington, Pac-12. And Oklahoma's absolutely going to win the Big 12. They'll be in a battle with Oklahoma State. And 30 years ago, it was the same thing. I mean, nothing changes. Bell bottoms come back in style. Football teams just stay the same. Well, tomorrow on the show, Joel Klatt stops by. And Anthony Lynn joins us. He's the new Chargers head coach, so very excited about that. You know, I was saying this earlier about LeBron. LeBron has acknowledged that he is obsessed with the movie The Godfather. Remember Al Pacino was Michael Corleone? And LeBron has admitted he watches it, all the time. And I was just thinking about this Kyrie situation, is that LeBron's career, and it's possible he's watched this movie so many times, he's a little bit the Braun father. He is Al Pacino. He is Michael Corleone. First 7 years in Cleveland, he was learning the family business. Didn't seem like Michael had it in him to be on top. The decision was LeBron killing off Sollozzo and McCluskey, Anderson, Varejao, and Dan Gilbert. His 4 years in Miami were the Sicilian vacation, exiled from Cleveland. LeBron coming home, that's Michael Corleone returning, becoming the Don. Starts flexing his muscle. Gets #1 picks traded for Kevin Love. Takes care of his guys, Tristan and JR. Does all the dirty work behind the scenes. This Kyrie wanting to leave, you know what that is. That's Michael Corleone saying to Fredo, "You broke my heart. You broke my heart." And next year and beyond is Godfather 3, cementing the legacy. Players taking shots at LeBron. Just when I thought I was out, they keep pulling me back in. LeBron James, I think it's clear, is the Braun father. It's sad how long we took to get that done and how little the payoff was. I really enjoyed that. It is great music. Godfather's great. Listen, Godfather's great. Godfather 2, Godfather 3. I'll say this. Goodfellas, I mean, come on. There's been like 12 movies, 15 movies made. Boy, I like Goodfellas. I told you my Ray Liotta story, didn't I? I didn't tell you my Ray Liotta story? Oh, God, like 5 years ago. I'm right around the corner. I was working somewhere else at the time. And I'm having lunch with a friend, and I show up early because I didn't know the directions. I didn't know L.A. very well at the time. And it was over here in Beverly Hills, which is 5 minutes from us. And like one of my friends is like, "Hey, let's meet in Beverly Hills." I'm like, "Oh, great. So I go over there, and I'm sitting down. I'm like a half hour early. I'm just sitting there, and so I'm like, getting just a glass of water. I'm sitting at the bar it's the Beverly Wilshire. They have this restaurant in there, right? The Beverly Wilshire Hotel. And there's this like bar and stuff. And it's kind of a cool place to go on a Friday, Saturday night and just kind of hang out and people watch, And all of a sudden I look over in a beige brown outfit. It's Ray Liotta. And even when Ray Liotta smiles, he looks like he wants to duct tape you and put you in the trunk of a car. And so I look at Ray Liotta, the actor, and he looks at me, and I think he's smiling or he wants to choke me to death. And he makes a beeline right for me. And I don't even know what to do. I'm nervous. Have I said something to offend him? Is he in character? And he comes right over to me. And Ray he's intimidating. Yeah, I had him on. He's an intimidating person. And I'm thinking, there's no duct tape. There's no wire. Doesn't have a hammer. I think I'm going to get out of here fine. And he says, "Hey, how do you memorize that stuff on the air? I listen to you all the time. How do you memorize that stuff? You just talk. And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Are you going to hurt me?" I'm like, "I don't know. You memorize lines. I don't know. I'm scared." And then he was really nice. And then he turned away and he disappeared into the wall. And I heard screaming and a trunk close. And that's my Ray Liotta story. And that's all I've got for you. TheHerdNow.com, TheHerdNow.com, free stuff. Also, speak for yourself in a couple of hours. It's The Herd.